Ladies and gentlemen, at this time we're going to begin the funeral services of Lynne Marcia Rice. Rabbi Jacob Leisman, North Shore Congregation Israel, will be officiating. We welcome those of you who are joining us online, and for those of you who are here, please take a moment to be sure that your cell phones have been turned off not to disturb the sacred funeral ceremony. This time the rabbi is going to approach the family to perform the ancient ceremony of Kriya, of tearing of the ribbon. So at this time I ask those of you in the first row to please rise and make a circle around the rabbi.
We remember Lynne Marcia Rice and join our hearts together to give comfort and strength to each other as her family, her friends, and her community. Mourning is a time filled with many emotions and many memories, both bitter and sweet. And we'll begin our service with the recitation of psalms, prayers, and readings, linking Lynne's life with the millennia-old tradition of the people Israel and the eternity of God. We're going to start with Psalm 23, which I will chant the first few lines in Hebrew, and then I'll invite everybody to join me reading the English translation on the inside cover. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai ro'i lo echsar, binot deshe yarbitzeni, al mei menuchot yenahaleni. Nafshi yeshovev, nafshi yeshovev, yancheni b'maglei tzedek leman shemo. Please join me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Esa enai el heharim me'ayin yavo ezri. Esa enai el heharim me'ayin yavo ezri. I turn my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your guardian will not slumber. See, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. Adonai is your guardian. Adonai is your protection at your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. Adonai will guard you from all harm. God will guard your life. Adonai will guard your going and coming, now and forever. And at this point, we will get ready to hear from Lynne's family, some reflections and memories from those who loved her most. And I'll invite Aaron to start us off.
Good morning. And on behalf of the Rice family, thank you from the bottom of our hearts for being here to pay your respects to my mom, Lynne Rice, who was a truly remarkable and stunningly beautiful woman, both inside and out. A devoted wife to my father, Richard, in a passionate marriage for the ages. A loving and supporting mother to Marissa and me, mother-in-law to Dana and to Adam, and grandmother to Jacob, Ava, Franny, and Marshall, as well as a cherished family member and friend to so many. The sad truth is life isn't fair, and Act 3 of Mom's life story was very tragic. But it's also true that sometimes it's inappropriate to tell a story in chronological order, and that couldn't be more true than when reflecting on Mom's beautiful and fruitful life. So I'll begin with some remarks on the final chapters of Lynne's life, while my sister and dad will follow, emphasizing happier times, and there were many. Mom was diagnosed with MS almost 30 years ago. For several years, it was easy to forget that diagnosis as her health didn't significantly change. I think she found the MS diagnosis extremely unfair, as she had already gracefully transcended much adversity in her life. She had lost her mother to cancer before she reached high school. She had a complicated relationship with her father, who passed away when I was a toddler. She had no siblings, as a would-be sister predeceased her. Then in her late 30s, she bravely kicked breast cancer's ass with a positive outlook and good humor in such a way that Marissa and I, who were then in elementary school, honestly were somehow never worried about her. During the course of the aughts, the disease gradually inhibited her ability to walk and stand for long periods of time. But she was determined to continue to live a full and joyous life, and she did. It was during this time that Mom strove to shield the disease from everyone, to preserve her dignity, to deny its progress by sheer force of will. Frankly, she resented being asked how she was feeling if she perceived the slightest hint of pity in the person's tone. She continued working part-time in the fragrance section at Marshall Fields. We're calling it Marshall Fields today. She loved the energy downtown. She loved fashion and beauty. It was always a great lift to my day when I could visit her during a lunch break or coffee. Mom was still in her full glory during our weekend wedding in 2010. It's a memory I'll always hold dear. She was elated for Dana and me. She looked stunning. My parents threw us a beautiful rehearsal dinner at which she gave a touching and humorous speech. She, along with my dad, walked me down the aisle. She fully celebrated the event, joyously dancing and engaging with family, her friends, and my friends. During this last decade, MS gradually stole Mom's ability to navigate the world and fully engage with people. She was first resigned to a wheelchair, and over time she found it increasingly difficult to speak. What made this especially cruel is that it roughly coincided with what should have been her happiest chapter, becoming a grandmother, or as Jacob dubbed her, Amma, a name she warmly embraced. There was a long chapter of periodic stays at the hospital for treatments and months-long stays in nursing facilities. Mom was determined to always return home to live with Dad, and Dad searched endlessly for breakthrough treatments, always holding out hope. In December 2019, while at home, Mom had a stroke. She would never live at home again. What made this even more painful is that the first pandemic in a century arrived shortly thereafter, causing us to be limited to FaceTime calls with her until we were all vaccinated. During Mom's final years, she somehow seemed at peace with the situation, which will always remain a mystery to me and a blessing to our family. I don't remember seeing her cry. She laughed about the shit food. Those were her words. When we had difficulty understanding what she was trying to say, rather than appearing angry, she would typically laugh and then find the strength to articulate 2 or 3 words. She was kind and cheerful with the staff. She loved reminiscing, hearing about what we were all up to, especially her grandchildren, who visited her from time to time. Jacob and Ava, the way you handled your visits with Amma, showing Amma your love, the way you were natural with her, it makes us so proud. For Lynne's children, Marissa and I, and our families, what I think enabled us to fully engage in our busy lives, raising young families, pursuing busy careers, and still fill the past decade with much joy was frankly our dad, Richard. Dad, your dedication to and love for Mom, the truly Herculean efforts you made being the primary caretaker at home for years, and then in these final years, visiting Mom nearly every day to lift her spirits and advocate for her at the nursing home, it overwhelms me and we're eternally grateful. I'll fondly remember the times you arrived to visit Mom during my visits with her, the way she'd light up, the way you made her laugh, the fun she'd have watching you answer Jeopardy questions. It was and is a great comfort to me. Now I'd like to briefly share some fonder memories during Mom's second act. As children, it's hard for me to convey the level of pride and joy Marissa and I felt being part of the Rice family. We thought our parents were the most glamorous couple in Chicago. They provided us a wonderful childhood, education, opportunities, and a loving home. We ate dinner together almost every night. We often watched the news together, 60 Minutes on Sundays. Mom liked to watch The Tonight Show and late night. She was a night owl. And we had lengthy discussions about our daily lives, the going-ons at school, current events, you name it. Mom was always there for us, making us feel loved and supported, being present, filling our home with warmth and beauty, imbuing us with confidence while demanding that we apply ourselves, teaching us manners, introducing us to culture. As I became a teenager, rather than concluding that Mom was uncool, I was struck at how hip she was and how my friends agreed. The relationship she built with my friends was beautiful, and it meant a lot to me. She was always my #1 fan, loudly cheering me on my teams from AYSO games as a youngster through my high school days at Francis Parker on the basketball court. I knew she believed in me, and that helped lift me. This extended beyond sports in my childhood, through college and law school, and then my legal career. She wanted me to set high goals and push myself while celebrating my successes. I admired so much about her. There was so much more to Lynne than her physical beauty. She was cultured in the arts, in opera and classical music. Her style was unmatched. She was well-read and up to speed on current events and politics. She built and sustained great friendships, making time for so many when they needed to talk. I fondly remember how she embraced Dana and her family, and how excited she was for us when we moved in together, eventually got engaged, and then married. And it will always bring a smile to my face when I recall her meeting Jacob at the hospital on the evening of his birth, and then during that brief period before the disease took a darker turn, playing with him, singing to him, and holding him with so much joy. In the last decade or so, I've missed terribly the long conversations I frequently had with Mom, and I think many here do. It's honestly been a very long and very difficult goodbye. So we've been mourning, gradually losing Mom for many years, for a decade or more, but now Lynne is at peace. In our grief, a precious gift to her and us, her family, would be to recall and celebrate her life when she was truly living. For those decades, her star shines so brightly. To me, this is what it means to make Lynne's memory a blessing. Remember her love, her friendship, her loyalty, her availability. Remember her positivity, her strength, her humor. Remember how fun she was. Remember her grace, her class, her charm. For many, remember how she was really there for you in your time of need, but most importantly, remember how she made you feel. Mom, as unfair as your third act was, it doesn't change the fact that you lived a wonderful life. You were the best thing to ever happen to Richard. Marissa and I feel we were the luckiest kids on earth, that you were our mom. Your grandchildren love you and learning about you in your happier days, which they will continue to do. You had a positive and enduring impact on so many. You will forever be terribly missed. I love you.
I'll invite Marissa to share a few words.
Erin, thank you for such a wonderful tribute to Mom. She'd be so proud. I could just see her with her thumbs up at you and with that beautiful smile. So now it's my turn. Lynne with an E named me Marissa with one S, because why not go through a whole lifetime of correcting everybody with the spelling of our names? But I was also her cupcake and known to everybody as her Missy. She was an incredible mother. She was an incredible wife and friend. She was loyal, caring, trustworthy, honest, and fun. Like real fun, funny and fun, the best. We loved her. Her friends loved her. Our dad, of course, passionately loved her. Our friends loved her, and our friends' parents loved her. A boy in my third grade class even came up to me one day and said, "So, Missy, the boys in the class took a vote, and we decided your mom is the prettiest mom, and she smells good too." So she really had an effect on everyone. So here we are, Missy and Erin, who are alike in many ways, but also very different. And she totally understood us. She wanted the absolute best for us. She knew our potential and wanted us to pave our own paths. She wanted us to dream big, set goals, and work hard to achieve them. She was our biggest cheerleader. She always believed in us, and she was always supportive and always nurturing. And of course, she was tough when she had to be, and with me, she had to be pretty tough. I wasn't always a picnic, but she knew that I was always going to land on my feet, her words. She just knew how much my brother and I wanted to accomplish. We weren't talkers. We were Lynne and Richard's children. We were doers. She encouraged us every step of the way to always embrace individuality, to never be a follower, and to always recognize the talents we had, accept the ones we don't, and learn to capitalize on what we can bring to the table. She always encouraged us to be involved. Whether we were students at Parker or at college or even as young professionals, she always encouraged us to do something extracurricular. She believed there are great friendships to be made by going on your own and doing something you're interested in or what you believe in. To not always depend on a friend to come with you. Be confident, walk in there, head held high, because everyone in that room is in there for the same reason you are. I have to thank her for that, otherwise there are many experiences and friendships I would have never had had I not learned that very important lesson. Jack, for example, the first time I went to the office for Postcard Wednesdays, which was perfect because I visited my mom every Tuesday and Thursday, I went on my own. And it was the most fulfilling and one of the best things I've ever done in my life, and my mom has absolutely loved hearing about it every time I saw her. And that's the thing. She was the best person to tell good news to because she'd match or outdo your excitement in a way that only Lynne can. She was the best person to tell bad news to because she had a way of making you put things into perspective and how to problem solve and move on. That was her term. Missy, just move on. She was the best person to talk to when you have a large task ahead of you. She'd always say, get organized, make a list. And out would come my pen. She always helped me take a step back, put everything in perspective, prioritize, not get overwhelmed, and just take one step at a time. For instance, when it became my turn to host Jewish holidays. If it's your turn to host a Jewish holiday, does it involve a brisket? Do you want to make an actually delicious brisket, not one that people just pretend they like to humor you? My mom and her best friend Enid, she always gave credit where it was due. It was Enid's mom's recipe. And even just a few months ago, my mom went over the brisket recipe with me again, and she loved it. She had it right there in her noggin. Need a good recipe for noodle kugel? Covered. Lynne got it. I made it at Syracuse, in New York City, in Chicago, in Glencoe. Everyone loves it. Are you going to be hosting a Passover Seder? Lynne, she's incredible, even Thanksgiving. If you're making a turkey for the first time, call her, it'll be spectacular. Not only was her food delicious, her tables were beautiful. The mood she set, it was just so warm. It was always such a gorgeous holiday. And we would always set it up the night before, and it sort of become a little bonding experience, especially as her MS progressed. And my aunts and my cousins, if they were in town, they would come over and we would set the table and order in pizza, and it was just wonderful. And over the last few years, we kept that tradition alive, and my aunts come over and they help me set it up, and I take pictures of each table that have all different china and all different flat, and I bring it to my mom and I show her photos, and she would just be so proud. That's the thing. I always look forward to my visits on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I'm going to miss those visits. I'm going to miss looking forward to them. I'm going to miss showing photos and videos and talking about the kids and current events, especially the election and whatever else. Walking in and hearing her say, "I'm so happy you came," are my favorite words from her. The smile was still her beautiful smile. But I take comfort in the little signs that she's still here. And she always told me that there were signs from her mom. I had my first sign a couple of days ago. I slept till 8:08, which is crazy, since I have my first cup of coffee at 5:50 a.m., I watch Morning Joe, and then I head to the gym. But not this morning. A couple mornings ago was 8:08 a.m. Marshall was at my door, and he said, "Rise and shine." He had never said that before, and I never said it to him, but that's indeed what my mom said to me every morning when she came in to wake me up. So I'm going to say something to my mom that she actually said to me every night, even when I was living in New York, and since she was a night owl, I talked to her until I went to sleep, and she'd be the last call before I went to bed. And it's also what I say to my children every single night. But I'm going to modify it slightly. Pleasant dreams, warm as toast. I'll see you in my dreams, night, night. I love you whole bunches.
And Richard.
If there's anybody here who doesn't think the sun came out on demand, you forgot how Lynne wanted things done the way Lynne wanted things done. And that was always with a beautiful result. But the morning I had to go, when she passed, the fog was overwhelming, and that was appropriate, that the sun is here in the way it is today also. Not in my script. Things that just correlate, and I have to admit, little did I understand how fully Lynne changed my life and how I dealt with things. As I think Aaron mentioned, Lynne sort of recoiled at everybody coming up to her after cancer, and she had lumpectomy, radiation, chemotherapy, and earnestly, sincerely concerned, "Lynne, how are you?" For years. And she'd say, "I'm fine. Why do they keep saying, how am I? I'm fine. There's nothing wrong." Well, for all of you who keep telling me what I did and what an effort I put in trying to do what I did for her, I feel the same thing Lynne did. What else was I supposed to do? It was the right thing to do. It's what anybody would do. And thank you, but Lynne. The night of April 3rd, 1965, Sheridan Plaza Hotel, site of a Mather High School club party. I was invited by one of the girls in Lynne's club. At the other end of the floor was a Northwestern University fraternity party with a cash bar. I managed to get served at that bar more than a few times. Returning with purchases to share with my crew, out of nowhere, a 5'5" brunette beauty I did not know, with eyes shooting daggers, really big, beautiful eyes, with a mouthful of metal braces, a finger pointed up at my face. "You stop this right now. Your date's parents are chaperoning this party, and you're buying booze for everyone." How could a start like that not lead to 59 years together? The first year we dated, Lynne would mail wonderful greeting cards to me that she authored. She was quite artistic, had really beautiful handwriting, and a sense of humor. A year later, Lynne came to Champaign. Suffice to say, Lynne was noticed. First semester, Daily Illini photographer stops around the quad and takes 2 portraits, which still knock me out, and most people who see them. Lynne pledged SDT. She was a finalist for sorority pledge pin and paddle queen. She was a Fiji calendar girl. She was a Robeson girl on the back page of the Daily Illini. The fall of 1968, she lost homecoming queen by 1 vote. The title gave her the title that made her Miss Ohio State, our opponents, Noah. She was introduced to the Buckeye team before the game, got a kiss on the cheek from Woody Hayes. It was the 60s, so it was okay. And Ohio State shellacked us. I don't think Lynne was the reason. But more about these extra men, Woody Hayes and others, as I progress. The historic Chicago summer of 1968, Marshall Fields appointed Lynne to their college board. I don't know if it was that summer at Fields or her lifetime love of fashion, but even after student teaching at New Trier, no less, and graduating in June 1970 with a BA in speech education, Lynne chose to start her career in fashion at Fields. We married July 14th, 1970, the same date as her parents had married, and we partied in the same ballroom as her parents' marriage at what is now the Intercontinental. Lynne later moved on to I-Magnin, a few years later being advised that Elizabeth Arden had great maternity benefits. She moved there, and boom, along came Aaron, one day after her birthday of July 18th in 1977. That was the beginning of her best career, supermom to Aaron and Marissa. Missy and Aaron have told you what it was like to be Lynne's son and daughter. Lynne and our life with the arts. Back to the first winter of our dating. I was just completing my life as a high school football player, which in too many ways identified me. Lynne lets me know she has tickets to see Nureyev and Fontaine, and I am taking her. Football meets ballet. The blowback I got from friends, G-Bear, if she gets you to go to a ballet, what's next? Turned out there were a lot of next. Well, my beautiful girl was a great Cubs fan, and we had seats at Wrigley for decades. We had season seats at the Symphony. Thanks to Lynne's cousin, Sally Foreman, we had 4th-row center seats at Lyric Opera for almost 40 years. We saw a lot of visiting ballet companies. We subscribed to Joffrey when they moved to Chicago. Later came theater at Steppenwolf and Shakespeare with Sherry and Arnie and the Harrisons and Victor and Ellen. I emerged into Lynne's world, and my life became more full and beautiful in ways I never expected. A couple of snapshots about Lynne. Lynne was a member of the junior governing board in the 70s and 80s, of the Chicago Symphony. Her main work with the JGB was accompanying small ensembles of CSO musicians for presentations in the Chicago Public Schools, and what she would do is introduce the music and the musicians. She loved it, and the musicians loved her. It also gave us the opportunity to meet Sir George Solti. Sir George smiled at Lynne upon learning they were both Hungarians, men. In the middle 70s, intermission at Orchestra Hall, we're in the lobby, and I see across the room Luciano Pavarotti speaking with then Executive Director of the CSO, John Edwards. Said, "Lynne, I'm sure Pavarotti would give you an autograph." Lynne said as she set off across the room, "But I have nothing for him to sign." I watch a few minutes of conversation between them. The artist smiles at Lynne. He breaks into a bit of laughter, and Lynne returns with Pavarotti's autograph on a blank check, and he spelled her name correctly, Lynne with an E. It's late 2001, early 2002. We're attending a dinner at the American Israel Chamber of Commerce with Enid and Cal Wenig. Black tie, the largest ballroom in the Hilton sold out. The keynoter is ex-President Bill Clinton. We're seated pretty far from the front, but we're along the rope line. At the end of the speech, Clinton, with the standing ovation continuing, is being escorted out of the room by our friend Lou Weisbach. The two of them have walked uninterrupted from the front. Lou sees us and brings Clinton over and says, "Mr. President, let me introduce you to two of my good friends, Lynne and Richard Rice." Lou's introduction was half successful. Clinton stops in front of Lynne. I might as well have been a cat rack. Clinton shook my hand. He never saw me. Time for thank yous that I'm certain Lynne would have wanted to extend on her behalf. It's award season. Thank yous are in the air. Lynne deserves a Lifetime Achievement Award for a lot of what Aaron and Marissa have described. If I fail to mention you, who have done some wonderful things over this past decade, it's not a slight. I'm almost 76. But first from me to Lynne. But for Lynne, I may not have struggled through University of Illinois accounting, which led me to Arthur Anderson and a CPA certificate. But not for Lynne, we're double dating with Lou Landsman to pick up his SDT date at 2400 Lakeview, which a decade later became our first condominium home. And at that location introduced me to a woman who recruited me to the board of the American Jewish Committee, which led to national leadership in New York, chairman of international relations, and incredible life experiences. But for Lynne, I would not have had a relationship with Enid and Cal, which led to the Federation board membership and my position in Soviet Jewry advocacy. But for Lynne, cousin Linda Glick does not introduce her to her soon-to-be husband, Bob Glick, which brought me to Rodman and Renshaw and Joel Jastrom and the investment world, and perhaps led ultimately to saving the Chicago Theater. We did not have a friendship. If we did not have a friendship with Wendy and Ron Filler, the connections that brought me to the ownership of March Capital wouldn't have happened. Now for Lynne. Cousin Sally Foreman, you were the big sister Lynne never had. You were a huge influence through so much of Lynne's life, from Mies van der Rohe high-rise living to tuxedo armed couches to love of music. And I'm pretty sure it was the love of your life, Edward, who set the standard for what Lynne wanted in a husband. My sisters, Shelley and Bobby, Lynne and I would have been in serious trouble without your help, moving out of the city, and so much more in the past decade. Rhoda Feldman, the love you had for Lynne and the care that Sid gave her for so many years touched her and me deeply. Marcy and Arnie Roth, your friendship, the wonderful meals you brought to us at Optima, thank you. Then the other mothers in Lynne's life. Lynne lost her mom Inez before high school, but there were another number of other moms who made room in their hearts for Lynne. My mom Helen loved Lynne from the start. While I was in Champaign that first year, when it snowed, Mom would drive over to Mather High School to look for Lynne to give her a ride home. Shelley and Bobby, I don't know if she ever did that for you. Ray and Marcia Bass, Ray's mom, became both our Aunt Faye and Lynne's friend. And as Ray and Marcia lived in the burbs, and Faye and we were in Lincoln Park, Aunt Faye became our favorite babysitter. Marcia's mom and dad hosted us for lunch in Acapulco. Then Lynne's two SDT sisters, whose mom treated Lynne like one of their own. Malky Friend, mother of Carolyn, and Vivian Pava, mother of Enid. Lynne was like a fourth sister with the Pavas and a third sister with the Friends. They embraced her with so much love and included us in so many of their family celebrations. That Lynn had such intense and positive friendships with Enid and Carolyn were, of course, treasures to be cherished. You two are truly your mother's daughters, and I can pay no higher compliment. I close with this message to Jacob, Ava, Franny, Marshall. Being your Amma for a great many more years would have been the ultimate joy of her life. Thank you all.
Really beautiful reflections, recollections, memories from her family. So there's a verse in the Torah that we'll read in a couple of weeks that gives instructions about sacred clothing. God tells Moses, make sacred clothing for your brother Aaron, Lekavod ul tiferet, for honor or dignity and for beauty. Just a few hours after I met with Lynne's family, with Richard, with Aaron, with Marissa, with Dana, with Adam, and I learned about her and her life, I thought this verse fit her perfectly. And it isn't just anyone whose life and legacy reflects a verse from the Torah so accurately. Lynne was known for her beauty. She was, after all, as we heard, the favorite mother of Aaron and Marissa's friends, and the favorite visitor to the Chicago Theater construction site when the construction workers would take a little break to watch her go by. She also had a remarkable taste in clothing and fashion that she shared with customers, designers, and buyers, in addition to her family while she worked at Marshall Fields. All that withstanding, I think this verse fits Lynne Rice not just because of her vision for clothing or her physical beauty, but because she lived a deep life full of these cherished Jewish values of dignity and beauty, kavod and tiferet, that radiated outward to her loving family, friends, and community. Let's start with kavod, which means dignity or honor. When Aaron, this Aaron, not the Aaron of the Torah, reflected on his childhood, and as we just heard, he remarked that his mom made him feel proud of himself, of her, most of all, to be a part of the Rice family. That special feeling that Aaron described, to be aware and proud of and respected for who you are and where you come from, is exactly what kavod is in the Jewish tradition. Lynne graced her family with dignity and honor as a dedicated and supportive mother and wife, and her impact also extended beyond the Rice family residence at 2400 Lakeview. She brought dignity to the Marshall Fields workplace when she and others lobbied to address the wage gap between men and women employed at the department store. She provided warm and loving support to Richard's dad and sisters when his mom passed away. She was interested in people and engaged in all sorts of discussions ranging from cultural interests and the arts to football and the Chicago Cubs. Lynne Rice made time for everyone, and everyone loved her. Regarding tiferet, beauty, our tradition teaches that a Torah scholar's appearance should represent their inner life. Outward beauty, whether sacred priestly clothing or, as Lynne would put it, classic, not trendy fashion, ideally brings out inner beauty. And Lynne very much fit the description of the ancient Torah scholar whose outward appearance reflected their inner character. Her beautiful table settings at holiday meals brought out the warmth and love of those gathered. A glamorous couple to onlookers, Lynne and Richard shared a truly beautiful relationship that spanned decades of love, care, and support. Beginning at the bar in Uptown and then Champaign, all the way through the later years when Lynne would still beam at Richard's presence as he cared for her. Lynne's generosity of spirit and friendship also created special bonds with many friends, especially Carolyn and Enid, that were passed down to their children's generation. Lynne brought more tiferet, more beauty, into this world during her time here. All of this dignity and beauty came from within Lynne, and these qualities emanated from her even when facing tremendously difficult times. When she was diagnosed with breast cancer in 1986, she remained the comforting, brave, confident mother that Aaron and Marissa loved so dearly, while she and Richard battled against her symptoms behind the scenes. After she beat cancer, Lynne became a resource to others fighting cancer, sharing her strength with the people and organizations who needed it most. And later, when Lynne faced MS, she again held on tightly to her life and humanity throughout these unfair and challenging circumstances. She stayed in touch with her friends over the phone, continued to work at department stores, walked all around Manhattan with Marissa in matching summer outfits while Marissa lived in New York, lit up the rehearsal dinner before Aaron and Dana's wedding with her speech, held her grandson Jacob. Lynne gave out a lot of love in her life, as you can all tell, received a lot of it in return. Love that kept her going as herself, socializing, caring, charming, and laughing for a long time. The themes of dignity and beauty are embedded within the Jewish tradition. They are in our priestly clothing described in the Torah. These phrases appear in our prayers. They are in our tradition of spiritual development. Lynne embodied these qualities while also bringing more of each of them into the world and into the lives of those around her. Zichrona livracha, may Lynne Rice's memory be for a blessing, one that reminds us of the dignity and beauty already in our lives, and one that inspires us to make this world a more dignified, more beautiful place the way that she did. And at this point, we are getting ready to say our memorial prayer in honor of Lynne. I will chant the words in Hebrew, and then I'll invite everybody to read along in the English with me, which again is on the inside cover. And I'll also, if you are able, I will invite you to rise for the recitation of El Male Rachamim. El Male Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Hamtzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, Im Kedoshim Utzahorim, Kizohar Harakia, Mazhirim, Et nishmat yakiratenu shehalcha leolama. Baal harachamim yastireha beseter knafav leolamim. V'yitzror bitzor hachaim et nishmata. Adonai hu nachalata v'tanuach b'shalom. Al Mishkava Vinomar Amen. O God, full of compassion, Thou who dwellest on high, grant perfect rest beneath the sheltering wings of thy presence, among the holy and pure who shine as the brightness of the firmament unto the soul of Lynne Marcia Rice, who has gone unto eternity. Lord of mercy, bring her under the cover of thy wings, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Be God's possession, and may her repose be peace. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, the interment service will continue at Memorial Park Cemetery, located at 9900 Grosse Pointe Road in Skokie. The family will be returning to the Ches residence at 753 Elder Court in Glencoe. They'll be together following the interment today till 8 p.m. and Tuesday from 4 to 8 p.m. Memorial contributions in her memory to the National Multiple Sclerosis Society or here North Shore Congregation Israel, that would be appreciated. And for those of you who are joining us online, all that information can be found on the funeral home's website. For those of you who will be driving to the cemetery in the procession will be forming in the north parking lot. Please obtain an orange safety funeral sticker to place on the right-hand side of your windshield. Have your bright lights and hazard lights on at all times. For additional measures of safety, we will be providing a car in the back of the procession to hopefully keep other cars from entering the procession. Please use your horn liberally as you're going through the intersections, and please do not speak or text on your cellular phone while driving to a cemetery. At this time, I'd like to call upon Lynne's grandchildren, Jacob Rice, Ava Rice, Francesca Ches, and Marshall Ches, and they will lead us along with their grandmother and then the family from the sanctuary, and then you may return to your cars. This concludes the service.